Your recruitment or talent career path. Are you where you want to be? This is a free session brought to you by Elephant Group, so you can get a taster about what our sessions are like, but also to get some advice on your career path and are you where you want to be? My name's Angela Atkins and I'm one of the co-founders of Elephant, and while my career has mainly been in HR and learning, all of my roles have always had a recruitment component to them. Also in the late 90s, I stepped over to the other side and worked for Morgan & Banks for a little while, so I've also seen recruitment from an agency point of view. And I've written a few books about this as well, management on HR, on training. And one of the reasons I started Elephant was I wanted to provide really practical, useful training that was about what happens in the real world, not theories that you learn at university. And I know that there's actually a lot of skills around being a recruiter and working in talent acquisition, and there's not much out there for you. So at Elephant, we've spent some time actually developing a career map of the different roles in recruitment that I want to take you through and how you might develop those skills. So here's our recruitment career path map. At the top there, you've actually got what happens in a lot of smaller companies where HR roles have responsibility for recruitment as one of the parts of the HR scope. Then you've got larger companies and organisations that have their own in-house talent acquisition team. And you've got a number of roles that you can work through there, from being a talent coordinator or advisor through to a specialist or a consultant. In really large teams, there'll be a team leader or a talent acquisition manager and even a talent director. And usually that position will then report through to the head of people or the head of HR. So often talent acquisition will sit within the people team in some way. You might enter into a career in talent acquisition and decide you actually like some of the other aspects of HR, so you move over into a generalist HR role, or you might be in an HR role, find that actually you really love the recruitment part of it and move over into talent acquisition. So there's some different career paths for you if you want to work in-house. Now, the big jump comes when you go across the sales wall into a recruitment agency type role or a headhunting or specialist agency. And there's a number of career paths in there as well. So often in an agency, you start in a recruitment admin role, doing the day-to-day tasks of sorting candidates, looking at CVs, all the setting up systems, working with often being an admin for a certain number of recruitment consultants and helping deal with candidates for them. Then you might move up to being a consultant through to a senior consultant, and this will depend on certain industries that you might specialise in. There might be particular types of roles that you actually work towards, through to managing your own recruitment agency branch. And then that goes through to the agency director. So that's one stream of a career path. Or you might be looking more at being a sourcing consultant. So you're actually just looking at finding candidates. An account manager, where you're actually responsible for certain accounts within the agency. A senior account management through to a regional manager. And then that might be where you decide to start your own agency. Or you might decide to specialise, so work for a headhunting or a specialist agency, and the roles there to start are around being a research associate, moving to being an executive researcher, executive search, headhunter, and then an associate director. So we've mapped all these roles out, and I haven't seen something like this that actually sets out these are the different paths. One of the key things you need to decide up front in your recruitment career is whether you want to be in-house and you don't necessarily have that sales focus, or whether you want to be across the sales wall and be in an agency-based recruiting role. So then you can look at what career paths you're actually in. Now, there's a number of pros and cons to working internally versus an agency role. So if you're in an internal talent acquisition role, or you're in a generalist HR role, but you've got a key focus on talent, the good parts of that is you really get to know your managers. So working in-house, you've got a good relationship often with hiring managers, and you might have a particular division or a department that you look after, and so you get to know those hiring managers really well. And often you can take your time a little bit more than if you're over on the agency side. So you can actually get to know the business, you can get to know each hiring manager's team and what the roles are within that team, and there's not quite so much pressure on instantly trying to find candidates and get them placed. The bad parts of that is you don't get as much variety. So if you're talent acquisition for a particular division and there's certain engineering, for example, those are the types of roles that you're going to recruit for. Pay is also differently structured to work if you work as an external recruiter in an agency. So there isn't that chance necessarily in an internal talent acquisition role to get those huge bonuses that external recruitment consultants get. So thinking about what are the good parts about being in an internal role? What are the things that you value? And are there things that actually are cons and you're thinking actually these might be an issue? If you jump the sales wall and you go into an agency, now the good points there is a lot of variety. So you may be recruiting completely different roles week to week, depending on the clients that you deal with and what types of roles they want to recruit. Sometimes you do get assigned a portfolio, so you might specialise in tech roles, but at that earlier stage of your career, you might be doing a range of different roles. So you get lots of variety and you get big rewards. When you make placements, there's often large bonuses paid because the company, the client that you've recruited for will pay a placement fee. So it's a very different REM structure to an internal talent role where you're on a monthly salary and you might have bonus schemes that you're entitled to. But when you're in an agency, it tends to be that you get these big woof bonuses. You might work for weeks and weeks and weeks with very little pay and then get a big payment. Now the cons, and that actually may be a con for you, but for lots of people that gives them a lot of motivation and drive. The cons is it is about relentless selling. So this is the big difference between the internal roles and agency roles, is that you are selling to clients, you're selling your services, you have to get out there and network and let people know about your agency, about who you are. You have to make connections, you have to look at roles that are being advertised and see if you could actually get in there and actually help them find candidates. You might go for many, many weeks without any placements and any financial reward or any satisfaction of having placed a role. And also clients can pull out, so they might decide suddenly that actually they don't want to recruit anymore and you've done weeks and weeks of work trying to source candidates for them. And you haven't got that same connection with a company as when you work in-house. You can't just pop and see a hiring manager and actually have a chat with them. You haven't got that face-to-face interaction, or you've got to schedule meetings with them. And you don't know the real inside story about what it's like working there. So you haven't got that same connection with a company. Now, I think the other factor that isn't discussed a lot is your personality style plays a key role in what type of career will actually suit you and what you will enjoy the most. So we have a free Management Bites module, which is the management program based on my book, around the different personality styles, and we use the birds because they're very easy to understand. So if you want to do the full questionnaire and actually hear about how these styles work, there's a free module on our website that you can find under Management Bites. But if you're more in the top quadrant, which is you're more slower and methodical and people focused, you're a dove, then you might enjoy the in-house talent acquisition roles or HR roles more because you like that connection with people. You like the time to actually be able to work through with a hiring manager and not rush through the recruitment process. Whereas if you're on the other side there, you're still people focused, but you're very fast paced and unstructured. You're more of a peacock. Often what suits you more is the agency side. You like networking, you like selling, you like getting out there and strutting your stuff and showing your peacock feathers. So think about your personality style and what career path that might suit you. If you're down the bottom and you're more slower, methodical and like facts and figures and are more of an owl, Analytics, whether in an HR role or a recruitment role, can often suit, and they generally sit more in the internal talent acquisition team roles, although there might be a role within an agency to actually look at stats and look at where sourcing is coming from, and looking at metrics around who's placing which roles and timings, and if you can reduce some of those steps in the process. And Eagles are more suited to making very quick decisions and are often CEOs and senior leaders. So do think about your personality style. Do that free module if you'd like to get a bit more information, and do think about how that fits into what you enjoy about your recruitment or talent acquisition role, and does that mean you are going to be more suited as you become more senior in your career? Because as you get more senior in an in-house role, you're dealing with more senior leaders who are Eagles, and if you're a very strong dove, you can find that quite hard to deal with. They can feel quite aggressive and it can be quite uncomfortable, and you might not feel very comfortable selling and dealing with conflict. So things do change over your career as well. I was much more of a stronger dove when I was younger in my HR career, when I started doing learning and development and I had to stand up in front of a room full of managers and train them. I had to become more peacock. My peacock was already there, but it became a lot stronger. So different roles in your career path can mean that you get out of your comfort zone, and you might need to think about, am I enjoying this, or do I need to step back, or do I need to go in a different way? And you'll see on that career path, the arrows go all over the place, because you don't have to go from being a junior into a senior role. You can go up and down and around and all over the place. So a suggested activity now is to actually think about your career path and your role, and think about what are the good parts and what are the bad parts. What are the pros and cons of the career path you're on and the role that you're in? Are they working for you, or do you actually need a change? And then where is your career path going? And I'm hoping that the career path map actually provides a little bit more structure and a little bit more information around the different roles that are out there and the different paths that are out there and the pros and cons, because sometimes you're not actually sure what the different roles and the different options are. So whether you're watching this by yourself or with your team, this might be something you want to get together and do, and actually see what your career path is, where you all are, what you enjoy about your roles, what you find challenging. Is there some way to actually change your responsibilities around in the team and suit your personality style a little bit better? Now, in the full module, Being a Great Recruiter, which is part of the certificate in recruitment and talent acquisition, we go into the knowledge and skills that you'll need, because the other key part of, once you've worked out this is what I'd like my career to look like, is knowing what skills actually apply, and then what are my strengths and which areas do I want to actually develop. So there are skills that apply for both working in-house in talent or in an agency role, and those are things like communication skills, being adaptable to different working situations, your learning agility, your resilience, and being able to multitask. But then there are skills that apply just if you're in those agency roles, and those are around sales related or goal orientation skills and knowledge. And then the other key thing that gets missed a lot of the time is, in recruitment and talent, there's a lot of technical know-how. So in that module, we go into a bit more detail around the technical know-how of how to write adverts, how to make sure you comply with legislation, shortlisting and interview questions, what are the actual concepts and models that sit behind how you design your interview questions and how you interview. So that technical know-how is actually really important to develop as well. And the really good model for developing this is the 70-20-10 model. So this is what effective development looks like, and 70% of it should be on the job. So this is you trying new tools and techniques out in your role to see what works really well, what makes you more effective. 20% is then getting feedback from coaches or a mentor, or feedback from others about what you're doing. And 10% only is formal training. So what we try and do at Elephant is we try and help you with all three of those. While our programs, and we've got the recruitment fundamentals workshops, the recruitment masterclasses if you've got a bit more experience, and then our formal certificate 1-year program. They are formal, so they are part of that 10%, but all of them have got built-in assignments that you can complete where you get personal feedback and coaching from our team. So that's the 20%. And then they all have activities as well for you to actually do on the job, reviewing your policies and procedures, trying new tools and techniques out. So we also try and build in that 70% as well. And there's more about those programs on the Elephant website. But overall, I hope that you've actually enjoyed this session and that Elephant can help you with your career and your training in the future. So all you need to do is have a look at our website and do let us know if you have any questions.